So I've been kind of thinking about the release of Classic WoW and whether or not I will be interested in playing it. And the short answer is yeah, like bigly, I'm very interested to play it. For me, as a Burning Crusade baby, those times to me were the best of the game. Burning Crusade, and part of that is rose-tinted glasses of nostalgia. Burning Crusade is when I first started playing. It holds kind of the most wonder for me, but it is also the closest expansion to kind of the, what do you want to call it? The difficulty's not the right word. I really think immersion is the right word of a Classic WoW. It was very, everything felt like a challenge. You felt, and I think I've seen this sentiment echoed in a lot of places, that Classic WoW, Burning Crusade WoW, you felt very small. Wrath of the Lich King is really when that kind of stopped. In Wrath is when we kind of started as the kind of murder hobo heroes of Azeroth, quote unquote. We kind of began to elevate up, and us as players within the game world were being treated as, something greater. We got to hang out in Dalaran, floating around in this big old mage city that they don't really let anybody else in. Started rubbing shoulders with very large figures on a very regular basis. People like Tyrion Fordring, people like Khadgar. Because, you think in war chiefs and kings. Before that, you didn't really interact. I don't really remember having a lot of interaction with, the really big figures in the game. They were, you could go visit Thrall in the Hold. You could go visit Varian. They were sitting on their thrones where they belong, but they weren't really interacting with you. You weren't getting quests directly from them. But in Wrath, that's when it started to change. Part of that was because of the story. Arthas being such a big enemy, they had to bring in big names and very heroic figures to kind of make the story make sense. But I think that kind of escalation, and people talk about Wrath as being kind of the beginning of the end. It's fondly remembered, but it also was when the game started to make really bad choices. It's when the Gear Score add-on came out and, got too much of a foothold, which that kind of, I guess, was happening regardless because it was third party and outside of WoW's control. I do think they may have been able to block it on their end, put something in the code that made it so add-ons at least had a harder time gathering people's what we now call eye level. It's when Looking for Raid, not Looking for Raid, I think it's when Looking for Dungeon came out, so the Group Finder tool came out in earnest and streamlined the process of creating groups, which kind of started to rob the personality from the game, the community, which I think at that time the community was still there. So you didn't really feel the effect because everybody was in a guild, everybody had friends, everybody had people they talked to, and so Looking for Dungeon and Looking for Group were just extras. You were four guildies needing a fifth, so you'd pop into Looking for Group and then find that fifth. Perfect. Nowadays, it's replaced the guilds. It's when phasing really started, and phasing, as a lot of people have pointed out, is kind of what led to sharding and the kind of breaking of the server community, which they actually are debating putting in Classic, much to a lot of people's dismay. I hope they don't. They're talking about, in the beginning, they're going to use phasing to kind of, in sharding, to help prevent the crush of, new players from overwhelming things. But again, I agree with a lot of people that that's part of the experience. Having to deal with a bunch of assholes was what made Classic WoW Classic WoW. It's what gave it that feeling. It made you feel small because you were one of a lot of people and you weren't special. And this fucking hunter was going to keep arcane shotting all your kills from 40 yards away instantly and make it impossible to tag the mobs that you needed to. And so you were either going to go, hey bro, let's team up so we're not skill stealing, or you're going to have to deal with it. And that helped spur along a sense of community. Or you were going to quest in a group so that there was 5 of you tagging mobs rather than just 1 to increase the chance of you guys getting a kill that you needed registered. And those kind of things really enforce the sense of community that the new game lacks because it's got too many quality of life things in it. And so what am I prattling on about is that I actually am really excited to play Classic. In the beginning, I never really cared. Playing the game for, over a decade now, I was never really interested in Classic because I guess the core game was good enough. Even in Legion, I wasn't. When, the whole Nostralis thing popped up and the Classic servers kind of got a lot of spotlight, I was kind of like, I don't get it. Why? But it's interesting, and the reason I think this is worth mentioning and worth talking about is because a lot of the quality of life changes that they've added to the game really should appeal to me. I should be WoW's, in its current iteration, its #1 fan. Because it's the game that I like, the game that I love, the story and the characters and everything that literally have been with me, my entire adult life and a lot of my childhood. And it's made easy. It's made convenient. And, convenience is actually a really good word for it. I think easy maybe isn't the right word. I think WoW gets a little bit of flack, and even I have given it some, flack of being too easy. And I've compared it to an RPG clicker game. And I don't change that point of view, but I guess easy maybe isn't quite the right word, because it still can be challenging. The challenges are fewer and far between, and they're not as intense, but it's there. Especially if you kind of get in the min-maxing and, playing to the top tier degree. It's definitely there. The challenge can be found, but I think where a lot of it lacks and where it becomes a little too straightforward is in the convenience factor. Questing is easy. Leveling is very easy. Endgame gearing is, it's all there. There's lots of different options. The gear falls from the sky. It's easy to gear in the endgame. It's easy to level. Again, I'm using the word easy, but it's approachable. You can clear a few levels. You can play for an hour and gain 2 levels. And this is at current, at level 100 to 120. And to clear a level an hour compared to, Classic, Burning Crusade, and even Wrath, I mean, that's a breakneck pace. Because you're talking about iterations of the game where it would take the better part of a day to get a level. And now a lot of this is directly related to the fact that there's a lot more levels to cover, so it makes sense, which is why I advocate for a complete stat squish, including levels, to bring everything back down to a reasonable, point, so that the game, which is still sort of kind of being considered and balanced around the idea of 60, 70, maybe 80 levels, that's now at 120, can get back to its roots, and I think that's really important. But even, there's twice as many levels now as there was in Classic, but the leveling pace is much faster than double. Because reasonably, it should take, twice as many levels, it should take, twice as long, but if you don't want it to take twice as long, it should be, each level should, you should get there in half the time. And that's certainly not the case. It's much, 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 much faster. And so, all these, again, quality of life things, the speed of leveling, the speed of getting a new character from start to end game, the ability to gear in the end game, as a solo player, WoW is a single player game now. And I think that's a real big thing, is that WoW is a single player game with multiplayer elements, where Classic, Burning Crusade, Wrath of the Lich King, where it kind of started to stop, those were multiplayer games with single player elements. You could quest alone. It made more sense to quest with friends. You couldn't do dungeons. You needed friends for dungeons. You needed good friends for dungeons too. You couldn't just bring some asshole. Raids, forget about it. Battlegrounds, absolutely. You needed people for these things. Again, the parts of the game that were single player were fewer and far between. So, the point I'm making, or trying to make, with getting in my own way a lot, is that I should be the person that the current iteration of WoW is for, because I am a busy adult now. I am not a 16-year-old kid who gets through school, gets home, drops my book bag, and then jumps on the computer for 5 hours until dinner, and then for another 3 hours until bed, and then another 3 hours after that once my parents have gone to bed. I'm not going to spend literally my entire weekend in front of the computer playing WoW. I'm going to spend a couple hours a day, maybe. I might go a week without touching the damn game. And you would think that all these mechanics that make the game more approachable and easier to jump in and out of would appeal to me greatly because of these facts. Because my life is, doesn't revolve around this game anymore, I should be WoW's current #1 fan. And a lot of people like me should be WoW's current #1 fan. But there's this paradoxical nature of it because none of us are. All the people like me who have been playing the game forever, who have less time now than they've ever had, should be the ones who absolutely love the approachability, but absolutely want the hardcore difficulty and, we want to slog. We want to have challenges before us. We want the game to be hard and obtuse and rough around the edges. And I think this is the big disconnect because I feel that the developers, there's definitely an air and an aspect and a large aspect of kind of the corporate money machine behind the works. Activision has definitely gotten its claws in, and a lot of the design choices are absolutely made for making a game for non-gamers. I agree with that, but I think there's also a genuine fuck-up in there because I think that the developers agreed to this because they think us, the now 30-something core base of World of Warcraft, have become non-gamers because it would make sense. We own houses, we have jobs, we have kids, we're married. We have all these adult things in our lives that should, on paper make us much closer to non-gamers than gamers. But the thing is that being a gamer is kind of a core part of who we are. Hey, people still to this day, even though I really don't anymore, say, hey, what do you do in your spare time? What are your hobbies? And I say, I play video games of different sorts. And it's also because it's an acceptable answer. It used to be something you wouldn't want to say. I play video games. Oh, fucking nerd. Now it's like, oh, it's cool. Yeah, my brother-in-law plays. He's a gamer. He's a Call of Duty fan, or he loves Blood Souls, whatever it's called. Blood Souls. Fuck off. And I think again, Bloodborne and the Soulsborne games with fixed, very high difficulty levels, relative at least. Really prove it too, because again, their main consumer base is it's not 12-year-olds playing Dark Souls. There are some, but a lot of players of Dark Souls and those games are 20, 25, 30. And so it bears the question, where does this paradoxical nature come from? Why would it seem that even though we as now grown adult gamers who have far less time to spend on the game don't want a streamlined, approachable game? We want the same kind of content that we were used to as kids, that we had the time for as kids, that we may not have the time for now. Where does that come from? And I think it's one of those things, again, the paradox is that, paradox feels like the wrong word. It's close, but I feel like it's not quite the right word. But the paradox is that in having less time, counterintuitive, that's the word I'm looking for, is counterintuitive. What's counterintuitive about it is that, at least for me, and I have a feeling that I'm not the minority, the fact that I have less time to game, because of that, I want a game that's more immersive. I want a game that I can lose myself into because I now value my time in that world more than I did as a kid. And now World of Warcraft is completely unimmersive. World quests feel like a checklist of shit that needs done. I feel obligations of things I need to do in the game alone. Now, I didn't mind the obligations of raiding. I also didn't do a whole lot. I shouldn't say I didn't do a whole lot of raiding. I did do a decent amount in Burning Crusade and Wrath. I mean, I was there when our guild killed the Lich King. But I wasn't a huge raider because of the commitment and because of the obligation. I didn't like it even back then in my early 20s and late teens. But that was a different kind of obligation in the game because that was self-imposed. I didn't have to raid. And a lot of the mechanics and features of the game as it exists right now give the feeling of required gameplay. It feels like things I have to do. And I have enough things I have to do. I've got to build cribs for my kids that are coming in a month. I have an unending list of things I have to do at work. I have an unending list of other things I have to do around the house. I have bills to pay. I have all these things that define me as an adult gamer, I have them to do. And I want in my games, my hobby, I want to be as far removed from my reality as possible. So when I log in and have a laundry list of things that I can/have to do, it's not entertaining because I have too much other shit I can/have to do. And I think that nature of the can/have that's where the disconnect lives. Because the developers say, here's a lot of different ways that you can get things done. And all we as gamers see, because it's part of our personality and who we are as people, we don't see things we can do, we see things we have to do. Because if I'm not doing all these things, I'm not doing it right. Because all these options are there, so if I don't exhaust all of them and try to get the best piece of gear, then I'm not playing the game to the full efficiency. And part of being a gamer, I think, is kind of understanding and mastering efficiency. And embracing it, as a kind of tool. So when you give me 10 things that probably maybe give me something, I'm going to feel the need to do all 10 things. Versus having 2 things that probably could give me what I want. I'd much rather do those 2 things than those 10 things, because at least the 2 things leave me with a feeling of satisfaction and completion. And again, it's less of a laundry list of little to-dos that I have to complete and more of a quest and a journey. At endgame WoW, as a fresh 60, one of the things you may do is run Blackrock Depths for gear a lot. I love classic Blackrock Depths. That's the best group content in the game. Fight me. It does not get better than Blackrock Depths. They've never done it better. I don't think they ever will. That is the best dungeon, the best group content. God bless them. If they were to release Blackrock Depths scaled up as an endgame raid, it would be the best raid the game's ever had. Because it is a perfectly designed dungeon. It is long, it is epic, it tells a story as you move through it, it's non-linear, it's difficult, it's punishing, and it's fun to get through. And running Blackrock Depths for 5 fucking hours is my favorite memory of WoW. It's something I look forward to in Classic. I can't wait for Classic to come out so I can get to level 58 or 60 or 55 and be the carry. And setting aside a whole Saturday to find a group of people who are stupid as I am that want to run that dungeon start to finish and clear every single boss and spend the better part of the day doing it. And that 5 hours is akin to all the different little random shit I would do at 120 just as daily tasks for cleanup. That's all, that's clearing out 12 world quests that I needed to get all 3 emissary chests, and the battlefront, and then going to the battlefront in the overworld that's non-instant and killing all the bosses, and then doing some island expeditions to level up my Azerite gear, and then looking for raid on all the different tiers that are available, and then maybe doing a mythic. That's all the basic shit I could do. And it just, all that sounds like a bore. It's droning. It's, bleh. Versus having an epic adventure through Blackrock Depths, and chances are at the end of the day, I'll have 2 upgrades out of that dungeon. And at 10 times, at the end of the day, I'll have 2 upgrades from doing all that world quests and bullshit. The difference is one of them is so much more fun to do. But the difference is that it's, again, you could say, well, you could do the world quests as you go. You can do them little by little every single day. That's the whole point. This shit's not fun if it's doable in an hour. If it's doable in 30 minutes, there's no way it's actually fun. It's just a task to be done. It's a screen to be clicked. I'm going to go click the screen for 30 minutes until all my world quests are done. And then I'm going to get nothing for showing it. I don't want to click the screen. I want to engage in a game. I want to do something with my time. I don't play World of Warcraft. I don't play video games because I'm looking to kill time. I do them because I'm looking to have fun. Put that on a fucking bumper sticker. And this lesson that I'm trying to espouse poorly at the end of my workday is really what needs to come home and what I really, really hope happens. I hope Classic WoW comes out and the live servers fucking die because everybody who actually gives a shit is going to roll to the Classic servers. I hope a lot of people who currently prop up the bad game design that we currently live in also join the Classic servers and promptly quit and go to the forums and talk about how shitty Classic WoW is because it's too hard and it takes too long and this and that. Because then you can see we can actually put a line down the middle and go, gamers, non-gamers. Look at the people that you want to appease, look at the people you don't want to appease. And honestly, if we can do that, let's, can we learn, can we have 2 versions of World of Warcraft out there? Can they make a version of the game that appeals to the one side and then another version that appeals to the other? I think so. How do you do it? Fuck it, call it a casual server. That's what I would do. And then people go, casual, blah, blah, blah. But the problem is, the thing is, people who play casual servers are never going to fucking know. Because they're not the people that go online to forums and shit and hear people talk shit about them. They're the kind of people that log in to do something for 2 hours and then log out. They're the people who do looking for raid and